So hold on, if Spider-Man's final swing in No Way Home is at Rockefeller Center at Christmas, does that make it a Christmas movie? Does that make this a Christmas video? My channel, my rules. Welcome to 5 points of articulation and happy holidays. The 5 points I articulate are packaging, presentation, posability, playability, and price. I'm Jason, and this is a very special Christmas-themed review. Today, I'm taking a swing at the Marvel Legends Final Swing Spidey from Spider-Man No Way Home. Starting off with the packaging, and this marks the third Spider-Man blister card we've been introduced to this year, the other two being Comic and Spider-Verse. No Way Home logo up here, our 3 cinematic Spider-Men along the side, same graphic on the back. A little bio here, but really doesn't say anything, and that's kinda how I feel about the whole thing, honestly. Putting it side by side Spider-Verse, you can see how similar the pattern is. Standard artwork with 3 spider characters on the sides of all the packages, Marvel Legends in the lower corner, and a yellow glowy portal looking thing framing the character. At the very least, Spider-Verse showed you all the other characters in the wave, and although the comic version didn't do that, it at least shows you the character you're supposed to be getting. I'm not saying the artwork isn't nice, I'd actually kinda like to have this as a poster. And obviously I'm very grateful for the blister, but for a collectible action figure is neither collector friendly nor informative and is all around pretty generic. For packaging, I'm giving this Spider-Man half a point. Moving on to presentation, and this random no-name dude is 5 7/8 inches tall, and is hands down one of the best likenesses that Hasbro has ever pulled off. And honestly, that's saying something. Strictly speaking, it's the same head sculpt as the Peter and Ned 2-pack from last year, and while the face printing is fantastic on this one, the finish on this is a lot more lifelike. It's pretty much just a miniature Tom Holland in the best Spider-Man movie costume. And I'm not kidding, this is it. This is the mountaintop. I'm not taking anything away from Tobey and Andrew. I love their costumes for different reasons. But if you asked me to imagine a realistic Spider-Man from the comics come to life, this is it. The bright red and blue, the simple black web lines, the simple spider logo. In fact, the only real embellishments are how it transitions to the belt and the cut of the boot tops. There's also the finest bit of texture on the red. As we'll see in playability, if you want to use this as a stylized comic Spider-Man, it's going to work great. Adding to its quality as an action figure are the pinless joints and that slight metallic sheen of the blue. Flipping it around, and I guess the back spider is pretty stylized too, but I'm happy to report that Hasbro did continue the paint underneath, same with the front. My only criticism is I do feel like there should be a row of web lines here, but that's the design from the movie and has nothing to do with Hasbro. Also, there's a bit of slop here, but otherwise the paint job is absolutely pristine. But if I had no idea where this came from and you just handed it to me and called it an import, I would absolutely believe you. It's that good. It's so well done, in fact, that for presentation I'm giving Final Swing Spidey 1.5 points. Moving on to posability, and this figure has a reputation for breaking, most especially in the biceps. Not wanting another Stealth Iron Man situation, I actually saved filming this section for last. Fortunately, I haven't had any trouble with breakage, but I will say the joints are very, very stiff. From the top, and the head's in a dumbbell joint, you can look up this high, but only down this far. Bit of tilt makes him look even more like a puppy dog, and all the way around. Moving on down, and swivel hinge shoulders raised 90 degrees, side to side with the butterfly joint, and then traveling down the arm we have the aforementioned bicep swivel, pinless double jointed elbows with an incredible bend, and swivel hinge wrists. Shifting to the torso, and as is becoming customary for Spider-Man, he has a diaphragm joint and a reverse ab crunch. Utilizing both, and Tom can arch back this far, and he can hunch forward this far. Most importantly, that diaphragm joint gives him tilt and twist. Below the waist, and Spidey has drop-down ball-jointed hips. He can only kick about 45 degrees. 45 degrees, by the way, being perfect Christmas weather, and you can split this wide. Tom also has a thigh cut, pinless double-jointed knees with a perfect bend, no toe articulation for those wondering, but he does have ankles that can hinge and pivot. Definitely do your due diligence to make sure that yours isn't going to break, but for posability, this Spider-Man gets 1 whole point. Moving on to playability, and this is one section Hasbro knocked out of the park. In addition to the fisted hands we've been looking at, Final Suit Spidey features a pair of wall-crawling hands hands, and a pair of thwippies. For a Spider-Man that only appeared on screen for about 30 seconds, they could have cut a couple of those out, but they didn't. And with so many hands, they could have justified not giving us this extra Tom head, but they didn't. Most importantly, they gave us this masked head. I'm so excited to get to the point in the video where I can talk about this. Just like the rest of the costume, this is exactly what I would picture as a Spider-Man mask come to life. I appreciate that he maintained the adjustable lenses for expressions, but otherwise these are smaller eyes, which is what I do prefer on my Spider-Man. I would be remiss if I did not point out that the right one is slightly out of adjustment, but even just holding it at arm's length, I don't know that I would have ever even noticed. Otherwise, the lines are nice and crisp, and this is everything I could possibly want in a Spider-Man head come to life. But as well packed as this Spider-Man may be, playability is more than just accessories. It's also about how well your figure plays with others. First off, he scales perfectly with that 2-pack version of Peter. As for our other live-action Spider-Man, and here he is betwixt Tobey and Andrew, really feels like this suit is a combination of the two. If you're wondering, I do have the unmasked Tobey, but I'm waiting for unmasked Andrew to arrive so I can review them together. For one more live-action Spidey, and here's the Japanese version by Toei. Hopefully we get Nicholas Hammond eventually to finish off the set. Sticking with the movies for a moment, and here's J. Jonah Jameson, a couple of strangers, don't look at me, and the Tom Hardy Venom. Of course, if you're curious how this Spidey looks with a comic-style Venom, and here's the Amazon 3-pack Life Foundation version. But as long as we're talking about corporate-mandated shoehorn Sony villains, here we have Morbius and Kraven. Shifting squarely to comics, and for some villains who appeared in No Way Home, and here's a couple of versions of the Green Goblin, Dr. Otto Octavius, the Retro Card Electro, Retro Card Sandman, and don't worry, I've also got the movie version of him, and then here we have the Retro Card Lizard. For a couple of other villains though, and here's the Retro Card Mysterio, and Cletus Cassidy, Carnage. For some Spider support, and here's comic and Gamerverse versions of Miles. The Gamerverse goes really great with this one. And then here we have comic and Into the Spider-Verse versions of Gwen. Speaking of the women who hold the key to Peter's heart, and here we have comic and animated versions of Mary Jane Watson, and my one true pairing for Spider-Man, the Black Cat. For a relative scale comparison, here's Final Swing Spidey with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man. And as always, here he is with Stealth Iron Man. Mr. Stark, you're alive! Sorry, kid, do I know you? Look at little Iron Man Jr. You gonna cry? Junior? Listen, kid, I have no idea who your mom is, but I'm sure I would have sent her a check. If that was too sad for you, one thing I'm sure will cheer you up are some head swaps. First up, and here's the new Tom head on the 2-pack body. Obviously it matches up great, but again, it is a slight improvement. Conversely, here's the happy head from the 2-pack on the Final Swing body. Because this version of Spider-Man will be happy again someday, right? No. Next up, if you're curious about the Tom head on the Civil War 3-pack version, here you go. Just be advised that the ball joints are not compatible and so it does not click into place. Same thing with the Homecoming figure, unfortunately. I gotta admit though, it does look really good. Far From Home is no trouble. Now if only we could get this figure with a full complement of hands, a matte finish, and the web lines painted on. Speaking of which, and here's the integrated suit from the No Way Home 3-pack. As far as I'm concerned, this is the ultimate figure of this version. For one more from the MCU, and here we have the What If Zombie Slayer. I'm sure we all want Tom to show up in Secret Wars, but frankly, I wouldn't mind if it was this version. As for comics, and starting with Pizza Spidey, we can see that this is gonna be pushing some limits. By which I mean that neither the reds nor the textures match. At a distance, it's kind of fun though. In terms of color matching, the retro card I use for size comparisons is perfect. And hey, you also have the added benefit of this head. Stepping back, and I'm honestly astonished at how well this works. The reverse, unfortunately, does not work as well. The size and color difference are just too noteworthy. Other way around, and let's just say I'm not going to be bothering with Tom heads on Spidey bodies. Next up, and here we got Retro Card. The eyes are already so similar on this head, I don't really think it matters. Stepping back, and once again, the reds don't match. Other way around, and we have the inverse problem. Too bright and too small. Renew Your Vows is, of course, a brighter red. As such, this swap isn't that bad. There is a difference, but it's not nearly as pronounced. As for the unmasked Renew Your Vows Peter head, I think this is pretty cool. little large, but to me that gives it more of an Ultimate Spider-Man feel. For the Spidey comparison I've been the most interested in, and here we have Amazing Friends. This looks fantastic. It's a little small, but the colors match up really nicely, and to my eye just looks more like that version of Spider-Man than the head that came with it. Other way around, and I think you can see what I mean. When I said Final Swing Spidey as a comic book Spider-Man come to life, this is what I'm talking about. For one last comic book Spider-Man, and here we have the new Ben Reilly. Gah! This is just downright scary. Between the size of the head and the size of the eyes, this looks less like Spider-Man and more like Spider-Alien. That said, I have been wondering about this retro card Peter Parker. The head sits a bit low and the body might be a bit big, but hand him a cup of coffee and a note he's never gonna send and it isn't half bad. Between all the accessories and the head swap potential, for playability I'm giving Final Swing Spidey 1.5 points. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. An all-new sculpt with painted web lines, an extra head, and 4 extra hands, all for $24.99? You might suspect I'm going to give this figure extra points, but no. The way I see it, this is exactly the way things should be. For price, I'm giving Final Swing Spidey 1 whole point for a final score of 5.5 out of 5. I'm so sorry, young man. I don't have any record of you in any of my lists. For more festive videos, check out one of these. Thank you so much for watching. Like Frosty the Snowman, I'll be back again someday. Until then, play nice, have fun, and be merry.